I filed for emergency protection because I no longer felt safe sharing a roof with the man I once trusted and the woman he called his mother. But before any judge could understand that, I had to go back to the night everything cracked. Back to the moment I realized I wasn't dealing with petty cruelty or passive-aggressive remarks. I was dealing with people planning a coordinated attack on my sanity, my reputation, and eventually, my freedom. It started with whispers. Not paranoia, not imagination, actual voices bleeding through the vents late at night. My husband Daniel had been working late for weeks, and his mother, Marlene, conveniently insisted on staying over to help around the house. Help, that was her favorite word. Help me cook. Help me clean. Help me understand why her son married someone like me. One night, unable to sleep, I walked past the guest room, her room, and paused. Not by choice. Their voices clipped the air like cold scissors. Just a few more days, Marlene whispered. Keep pushing her. Keep saying she's forgetting things. When she reacts, record it. Daniel muttered something I couldn't catch, only for her to continue with that smooth, poisonous calm she always carried. Once the therapist believes she's unstable, we can move her out legally. You'll get the house. And she won't be able to fight back. My breath froze, then shattered inside my chest. They weren't arguing about me. They weren't venting. They were laying out steps like a checklist. I didn't push the door open. I didn't scream. I didn't storm in and demand answers. Instead, I walked back to my bedroom on silent feet, locking the door behind me. My pulse throbbed in my teeth. Every conversation from the last few months replayed in sharp, horrific focus. The missing keys, Daniel claimed, I had misplaced. The important papers that vanished. The medication bottles Marlene insisted I had moved somewhere. All the accusations. All the staged confusion. All the false concern. They weren't trying to hurt me. They were trying to erase me. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the dark without blinking. The instinct to flee battled with the instinct to fight. But somewhere deeper, colder, I knew awakening their suspicion would only speed up their plan. I needed something stronger than fear. I needed proof. And that night, for the first time, a thought formed in my mind. A dangerous, steady thought. If they wanted to record me, they'd better pray I didn't record them first. Because if I did, I'd bring everything they built crashing down right on their heads. I didn't sleep the night I heard their plan. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, my fingers curled tightly around my phone as if it were a weapon. Fear tried to swallow me whole, but something colder and sharper pushed its way through, resolve. By sunrise, I already had my plan. I drove to a small tech store 2 towns over, choosing a place where no one would recognize me. I bought 2 things, a tiny recording device no bigger than a button, and a motion-activated audio recorder disguised as a charger. Tools that could catch a whisper, a murmur. A conspiracy. They had turned my home into a trap. Fine. I would turn it into theirs. By the time I got home, Daniel was in the kitchen pretending to be the caring husband he liked to present to the world. He kissed my forehead, told me I looked tired, and asked if I had another one of my forgetful nights. Every word he uttered made my stomach twist, but I forced a smile. Maybe, I said quietly. I'm not sure. He satisfied himself with that answer, unaware that the recorder in my purse was already capturing his slanted, manipulative tone. But that was just the beginning. Over the next 2 days, I planted recorders like seeds, one behind the living room bookshelf, one under the dining table, one in the vent directly above the guest room. Each time Marlene spoke to him in low tones. Each time she accidentally moved something of mine. Each time Daniel pretended concern. The devices stayed silent until motion triggered them awake. I became a ghost in my own home, quiet, patient, watching everything. And then, 2 nights later, I struck gold. It was nearly midnight when Marlene arrived at the house again. Despite saying she wouldn't, I stayed in the master bedroom, listening through the vent as they spoke. She's breaking, Marlene whispered. Yesterday she asked me if I'd seen her wallet. I moved it myself. She's already doubting her memory. Daniel sighed. The therapist asked if I feel unsafe. If we push a little more, push. Her voice sharpened. The sooner she's classified as unstable, the sooner we can petition for her removal. You'll get the house. And I'll finally be free of her attitude. I didn't move. I didn't gasp. The recorder caught every word. When they left the room, I played the audio back once, my hand trembling but steady enough to save the file. After that, I transferred it to a protected folder, then backed it up to a cloud account they didn't know existed. For the first time in months, I inhaled fully. I wasn't powerless. I wasn't confused. I wasn't losing my mind. I had the truth, their truth, captured and preserved. And soon, they would hear it too. The next morning, everything felt different. Not safer, just clearer. Like I had finally stepped out of the fog they had wrapped around me. But Daniel and Marlene couldn't sense the shift. They were too confident, too settled into the rhythm of their own cruelty. Around noon, Marlene stopped by unexpectedly again. She burst through the door holding a grocery bag, acting as if she lived there. Daniel followed her to the kitchen. I stayed in the hallway, out of sight, listening as she whispered loud enough to be recorded, but soft enough that she believed I couldn't hear. Today, she said. Move her medication case. She panic. She always panics when she thinks she's lost something. Daniel exhaled impatiently. She's not reacting fast enough. The therapist thinks she's overwhelmed, not unstable. We need something stronger. Something stronger. The phrase chilled me to my bones. Another recorder was activated inside the living room vent. Marlene lowered her voice. I can spill the cleaning solution in the hallway again. If she slips, no. He cut her off. It can't look intentional. We need her emotional, not injured. Even he hesitated to go that far. She didn't. Fine, she snapped. Then we'll escalate the memory issues. I'll hide her keys, her appointment slips, and anything she might need today. By next week, she'd be begging someone to tell her what's wrong with her. My breath tightened. They weren't just manipulating me. They were manufacturing a mental collapse. But what they didn't know was that every cruel whisper, every plan, every piece of their strategy was being saved. Layer upon layer of proof, building its way into something powerful enough to tear their lives apart. By evening, Daniel started playing his role again. Soft voice, forced sympathy, false kindness. He knocked on the bedroom door. You okay? He asked. Mom said you seemed confused again. I turned slowly, schooling my face into the perfect mixture of uncertainty and sadness. Maybe I'm just tired, I murmured. Things keep going missing. He stepped closer. Too close. If this gets worse, he said softly, you should let me help make decisions. Just until you're thinking clearly. I looked up at him, masking the rage boiling under my skin. Do you think something is wrong with me? He hesitated. That was his mistake. I think. Maybe. And that's okay. I nearly laughed. Instead, I nodded. After he left the room, I locked the door and pulled out the audio files. One by one, I checked them, Daniel pushing the unstable narrative, Marlene engineering chaos, both of them plotting to take my home and my future. The evidence was airtight. So I gathered every file, organized them by date, labeled them clearly, and uploaded them to a secure drive that would automatically send them to my lawyer if anything happened to me. Then, I printed 3 transcripts. One for me, one for the judge, and one for the husband who thought I was too fragile to fight back. The next morning, I filed for an emergency protection order. When the court date was set, Daniel looked genuinely confused. He had no idea what was coming. The courthouse hallway felt colder than any room I had ever walked through. Not physically, emotionally. A kind of chill that reached the bones. I sat alone, transcript folder in my lap, while Daniel paced back and forth near the opposite wall. His mother, Marlene, whispered in his ear like a venomous shadow. They still thought they were safe. They still believed their version of reality was airtight. They still assumed I was too weak, too lost, too broken to fight them. Good. Let them. When the courtroom doors opened, I stepped inside without looking at either of them. I didn't need to. I could feel their eyes crawling across my back, confused, annoyed, impatient. Not scared. Not yet. The judge glanced at me first. Mrs. Hollow, you requested an emergency protection hearing. You may begin by explaining the danger you believe you're facing. I didn't speak immediately. Instead, I set my folder down, opened it slowly, and let the silence stretch until I knew every eye in that room was on me. Then I said, Your Honor, the danger is not imagined. It is planned. Daniel shifted in his seat. Marlene stiffened. I continued, Before I explain anything, I'd like to play an audio file. The judge nodded. I pulled out a small USB drive. This contains a series of recordings from inside my home, all captured legally. The judge raised a brow. Proceed. I connected the drive to the courtroom laptop. The speakers crackled. And then Marlene's voice poured into the room like poison. Today, move her medication case. She panic. She always panics when she thinks she's lost something. Daniel's voice followed. She's not reacting fast enough. We need something stronger. I didn't look at them. I watched the judge. Lines formed across his forehead. His expression hardened. The recording kept going. Keys hidden, appointments sabotaged. The suggestion of creating false, fake concern. A plan to make me look unstable in therapy. And then the final blow. If this gets worse, she should let me take over her decisions. Silence. The courtroom wasn't breathing. Marlene's hand flew to her mouth. Daniel's face went white, then red, then something ugly in between. The judge finally looked at them. Do either of you deny that this is your voice? Marlene trembled, shaking her head. Daniel tried to speak. Your Honor, this is out of context. Enough. The judge's voice cut through the room like a blade. Then he turned to me. Mrs. Hawley, do you have more evidence? Yes, Your Honor, I said. 5 weeks' worth. I set the full stack of transcripts on the desk. The sound echoed like a gavel strike. The judge leaned back. This is not a misunderstanding. This is coercive control, manipulation, and psychological abuse. Daniel collapsed into his seat. Marlene kept whispering his name. Panicked. The judge's next words felt like justice carved into stone. Your emergency order is granted. Effective immediately. They are to have no contact with you. And I will be forwarding this to the state prosecutor for review. Daniel turned toward me, then shaking. Furious, desperate, but for the first time, he understood something. The woman he thought was weak had recorded every step he took. The courthouse parking lot was almost empty when I stepped outside. The wind was sharp, but for the first time in months, I breathed without checking over my shoulder. My hands weren't trembling. My heartbeat wasn't racing. My mind wasn't spinning around their words, their tricks, their shadows. For the first time, I was simply quiet, but behind me, chaos was unfolding. I heard Daniel shouting at his lawyer, demanding explanations that didn't exist. Marlene kept repeating, "This is all her fault," as if blaming me could rewrite the recordings. But their voices sounded distant like echoes from a life I no longer belonged to. By the time I reached my car, my phone buzzed. A message from my attorney: "Will pursue the restraining order within the hour. You did everything right today." Everything right. A strange phrase for someone who had spent months being told she was wrong, forgetful, unstable, dramatic. But the truth was out now. And truth does not apologize. That evening, I sat in my living room, the same room where so many of their plans had been made. The same room where I had once cried quietly, wondering if maybe they were right about me. Now that room felt reclaimed. Mine again. I lit a single lamp and opened the binder of transcripts. Not to torture myself, not to revisit the pain, but to understand the scale of what I had survived. The first pages were hard. Marlene is telling Daniel to confuse me. Daniel admitted he enjoyed how emotional I got. The deliberate moves, the staged events, the slow erosion of my confidence. But somewhere around the 10th page, something shifted. I stopped feeling hurt. I started feeling powerful. Because every line, every manipulated moment, every whispered instruction had now become evidence, proof, a weapon they couldn't take back or spin or destroy. And that was when the prosecutor called. He spoke with a steady, professional tone, but there was an edge of anger underneath it. We'll be opening an investigation into both of them. What they planned constitutes psychological coercion and could escalate into physical harm. Thank you for coming forward. Coming forward. As if I had walked toward them willingly. No, this wasn't courage at first. It had been survival. What came after? That was courage. Within days, news reached me through mutual contacts. Daniel was suspended from his job pending legal review. Marlene's volunteer board quietly removed her name from all upcoming events. Family friends stopped picking up their calls. Their world didn't collapse dramatically. It didn't explode. It crumbled slowly. Piece by piece. The same way they had tried to break me. Weeks later, when I stepped into my home office and closed the door behind me, I realized something important. Winning wasn't about destroying them. It was about reclaiming myself. My voice, my mind, my safety. And the day the final restraining order arrived in the mail, signed, stamped, undeniable, I held it with steady hands. The woman who walked into the courtroom, shaken, had not been the same woman who walked out. I had walked out whole.